It's 175 days to the 2019 presidential election scheduled for February the 16th, and preparations are in top gear for the election that is promising to be the mother of all elections since return to democracy in 1999. Aside the fact that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is yet to be flushed with the required cash to prosecute the elections, the political scene is bubbling with events. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Standpoint. I'm Veronica Danikboy. It's one day, one drama in Nigeria's political space as the 2019 general elections inches closer. From defections and counter-defections to impeachment threats and the proliferation of political parties, there's much to talk about. With me in the studio is a former deputy governor of Ogun State and a 2019 governorship candidate for Ogun State on the platform of the APC, Senator Gbenga Kaka. On the platform of the ADP. And finally, I have in the studio a politician, Rotimi Basheda. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the program. We're looking at INEC recently registered 23 new political parties, bringing the number of political parties that will contest the 2019 elections to 91. Divergent reactions have been trailing that announcement, but the one question Nigerians are asking is, do we need this many political parties? I'll start with you, Senator. Now, in 1999, when we started, we had about 5 parties, when we returned to democracy. And now we have about 91 political.
We had 3.
Oh, we had 3 at a time. But records show we had 5. But you're saying we had 3. And so looking at the progressiveness of the registration of political parties, does this show that we are deepening democracy, or is just people taking advantage of the liberal environment or atmosphere to express their personal interests, political interests, in terms of talking about selfish gains?
Well, it depends on the way you look at it. If you look at it from the provision of the Constitution, there's freedom of association as enshrined in the Constitution. So 2, 3, 4 people can come together and decide to form a political party. So once they are not flouting any law of the land, they are legally covered. Then talking about INEC, INEC is also protected because they needed to respect the constitution of the land. So registering a total of 91 political parties is within the acceptable duty of INEC. But when we now look at the system, the participants, as well as, of course, the electorate, then it becomes worrisome. In the sense that what we're supposed to have achieved with 91 political parties by offering unlimited choices for the people to pick will be denied them ultimately. Because what we have in the country today, we have lack of ideological orientation. And with that lack of ideological orientation, it becomes difficult for people to separate the chaff from the corn. That is picking one choice out of 91. So we can readily say that it's a recipe for confusion, for chaos, and of course, it won't deepen the democracy. Because what we have in the country today, whether we like it or not, is gravitation towards 2 political parties, which is like what happened in other advanced countries where you have 2 major dominant parties. We nearly got there under General Babangida when we had the SDP and NRC.
Yes.
But nothing stops us from cohabiting. We need to learn to cohabit because the plurality is also of essence. So he who cannot socially relate to others or politically relate to others,
All right.
other than say, okay, I want to build my castle in the air, I want to be alone. then something must be wrong.
All right, let's come to you now, Otumba. Is this a recipe for confusion, like the senator has said, or is just a freedom of expression and association?
Actually, I'm of a different school of thought. When you talk about democracy, there shouldn't be limitations as to how many political parties should be registered. You should be free to express yourself. So where a couple of people come together and register a political party, that's fine. What we are finding, what is missing, is how to police the political parties. There should be qualifying periods. There should be eliminating criteria. I mean, you can't just have a political party just for having a political party's sake. There have to be, we need to have some sort of qualifying criteria to remain visible or to remain registered as a political party. What's the use of having a political party that do not have any electoral offices, whether in the local government or state or national, just, you know, per se, a political party. So as far as I'm concerned, we could have 91 political parties, but there should be qualifying period and there should be rules in place. There are rules.
What should be
but
these rules?
It's never been.
What should
they have
determine
the
the qualifying periods?
Well, basically, one of the most important rule, you should have your political place in central. What I'm trying to say is that all political parties have their national offices in Abuja.
Is that enough?
It's not enough. It's one off. The second thing is you must conduct your NEC meetings regularly. The other point is you must also have an electoral office. So there must be somebody, there must be someone that had gone through an electoral process, i.e. win to become a councillor, a chairman of a local government, House of Rep. You must hold, that political party must hold an elective position in the nation to remain registered as a political party. Once those things are there, they're there. It's just that it's not being policed. It's not being taken care of. So a couple of months ago, INEC decided that they were going to deregister a lot of political parties that don't have, that don't fit into those criteria. But then within weeks and months, you find out that nothing happens. It fizzles out. So it's not bad having options, but what I feel is wrong is that we need to limit those options by putting certain controls or certain measures in place. The measures are there, not completely, but those ones that are there would have done the job. It's just that they're not being enforced. So 91 political parties, how many political offices do we have in the state? Even if it's just a councillor slot, you should have one to actually remain viable as a political party. Most of these political parties are husband, wife, and friends, and they come in out every 4 years, for political reasons to make money.
We'll look at their viability later on, but let's bring in Babatunde in now because he was smiling while you were speaking. He seems to not agree with certain things you have mentioned. Right.
I'm of the opinion that freedom of association, freedom of expression should be at the core of any democracy. The minute you begin to attempt to stifle opinion, the need for people to express whatever democratic ideals that they might have, however crazy they might be, you begin to infringe on the freedoms. Little by little, you begin to erode the freedoms of the people, and in time, as tolerance for that begins to build up, you slide into dictatorship. So it's very necessary. If you're a democracy, if you claim to have any democratic credentials, I mean in terms of any jurisdiction internationally, you really ought to allow for freedom in terms of as many political parties as possible. I'll tell you a funny story. You know, back in the UK, many years ago, I don't know if they're still operational now, there used to be, and there still are, very, very many political parties. You've got the Scottish Independent Party, you've got the UK Independent Party, you've got the
Green
Liberal,
Party.
Democrats, Labour, Conservative. Those are the ones that everybody knows. But do you know that there used to be a party, I don't know if they still exist, called the Raving Looney Monster Party? That was a political party. It existed almost for comedic value, almost. But they always, fielded candidates. Screaming Lord Such, I remember, was always their prime ministerial candidate, was always, running for the prime ministerial position. Of course, he never had any MPs in his party, but it was just him. He always ran, and he always got maybe 5 or 6 votes in the end. But the fact is, this is the jurisdiction that we inherited, Nigeria, the whole concept of Nigeria from. Now, if they, see the wisdom in allowing people to express themselves politically and their democracy has matured over a number of centuries, then we should be aspiring to,
you said,
as much as possible,
you said
copy
this,
the
you're not certain
virtues
if these parties are still in
democracy.
existence, because parties are meant to make impact. You come into existence because you want to make impact, and you don't just exist because you want to exist.
True, but irregardless of that, I think, in my opinion, the political freedom should be total. There should not be any attempt to curtail or restrict people's desires to form their own political party, perhaps out of protest for a local issue, perhaps out of yearning for something better on a national scale or at the state level or in their local government. Even sometimes in a ward, there might just be some protest votes that will say, okay, you know what, we don't want to vote for these particular established candidates. We'd rather throw away our votes to an unknown party. Do you understand?
All right.
At the end of the day, as time goes on, democracy will mature. Some of these parties will consolidate. It's natural, it's a natural process, just like the banks consolidated a few years ago. Okay, political
But
parties
we've seen
will
how
consolidate
most
and
of
they'll
these
merge.
consolidations have survived. Senator, or you wanted to?
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. Basically, we have control for everything. That's the way we live. That's human nature. That's how we exist. You can't say because we want to give press, for example, I'm very sensitive about that. There should be complete freedom of speech. Press should be allowed to speak and express. But then there's control. There's limitations. There are certain rules that you cannot,
Guide
a guideline.
yes.
Exactly. So a political party can't just willy-nilly exist. They must have an impact. And the impact is, yes, we're here, yes, we are option, but we must also impact into the lives of the people. So we must be able to position ourselves in places where we'll be able to have a say. And where do you do that? In a cabinet. You either you're either a member of the, you are either a councillor, a local government elected officer, or you are in House of Assembly, House of Rep. You must be part of that structure to be able to impact. So I am saying, yes, correct, let's have them, but then take a look at every single industry, every single social economic setup, every single NGO. There's control. There is limitations. There are things that you can or cannot do.
There are rules and regulations.
There are rules and regulations. I'm saying we have them. I mean, my brother has mentioned that, we should allow political parties to register and all that. Yes, but these political parties that are being registered knew that there are rules in existence. I'm not saying create rules. The rules are already there. It's just that they're not being policed enough. We ignore them. We pay lip service to them. 91 political parties. That's ridiculous, as far as I'm concerned, in anywhere in the world. We're not saying don't register, but then have an impact. Then follow the rules. If you are that viable, you will remain registered. We could end up with 200 political parties that are viable. I'm not saying viable in terms of number one, number two, but viable in terms of they're holding something where they can make a contribution to the society and
All right, the
and be
Senator
objective.
wants to say something.
Well, I think we need to look at things holistically. We are just coming out of recession. And we know the economy of the presidential system of government in terms of accountability, in terms of the expensive nature. Then we can't be comparing ourselves with a well-established polity. Their system is well-established. Right now, we are still battling to make electronic voting easy. The last time around, we were having probably about 27 or 37 competing parties.
Yeah.
And yet, the logo of one party or the other are getting missing on the elongated ballot paper.
Papers, yeah.
Then by the time you now have 91 at a go, and we still have largely the electorate being illiterate, except we have a well-planned process that will guarantee that nobody is disenfranchised. I'm still insisting that to have through 91 parties at our own people, just like that, is a recipe for failure, for chaos, and of course, total confusion. So we should be able to do things the way it should be done. Right now, yes, as I said, the nation is gravitating towards two political parties. Other fringe parties can exist. Nobody is troubling them. They have their freedom of association, freedom of expression, but INEC must do the needful by ensuring that a working system is put in place and nobody is disenfranchised in the process. Then talking of value, yes, if we like, let's make it 200 or even 1,000, because it should be possible. All this issue of national spread shouldn't be automatic. A political party can exist within a local government once they know what they are doing. So that you must establish offices in Abuja in 2/3 of the states of the federation is, though generating employment opportunities for those who care to work with them, but it's a colossal waste to the system. We could channel our efforts into a more productive uses, other than to say we are building political party. Structure here and there. When the economy is not moving, when the education is comatose, when other basic necessities of life cannot be provided. So we just have to be reasonable. Even as we are talking now, some people are clamoring. Let us go to the parliamentary system of government that is more economical, more accountable, more representative than all this bogus presidential system. So if in the name of presidential system and the provision of the Constitution, we are just throwing everything open, we may have to review everything. It was Gani Fawehinmi who fought the proliferation of parties, and they granted it. But if it's becoming unwieldy, then we just have to be sensible. We are not just in politics for politics' sake. We are there for a purpose. And if the purpose is not being achieved, then it's not worthwhile.
Well, being sensible, I come back to you, Babatunde, because you were seemingly smiling, and I'm not sure if you are in agreement with what the senator is saying, but like he raised, this could cause confusion and possibly the disenfranchisement of some electorates. But for you, is that what it represents? Because the process of electioneering is to actually restore voter confidence.
I agree with what the distinguished senator has said insofar as he mentioned that there could be some disenfranchisement of members of the electorate. In fact, there is a lot of disenfranchisement built into the system that's actually happening right now as we speak. I'll give you an instance. And this is nothing to do with the political parties. This is more to do with the electoral empire itself. In the run-up to the 2015 elections, every single polling unit in Nigeria was a voter registration center. You wanted to register to vote, you went to your polling unit, you registered there. So let's take Alimosho local government, for example. In Alimosho local government, I think there are over 1,000 polling units there. And in the run-up to the elections, there were 1,000 registration centers, which meant if it was going to take about 20 minutes to register each voter, at least on paper, in theory, Alimosho would register roughly about 1,000 voters every 20 minutes in the run-up to the 2015 elections, in theory. However, today, INEC, in its wisdom, for whatever strange reason, has decided to constrict the registration system and allow registration to happen at only the INEC headquarters of the local governments, at least in the south and in the middle belt. So you have this strange situation where in Alimosho, where you had 1,000 people registering every 20 minutes, you now have only one person in the whole of Alimosho registering every 20 minutes because they now have only one registration center at the INEC Secretariat of Alimosho local government. So emasculation, disenfranchisement, that's the fault of the umpire. As to the proliferation of political parties, the rules that exist that my honorable brother here has mentioned obviously need to be followed to the letter by INEC. And that does not mean that they should be cast entirely in stone. They can be reviewed. That's one of the reasons why the legislature is there. Where it seems that perhaps some of our legislators or some of the drafters of the laws might have been a little over-enthusiastic in their attempt to regulate, because there is such a thing as over-regulation, okay? Where you over-regulate, you can always, pull yourselves back a few years down the line, take a review of the situation, and decide whether, this direction of restriction, over-regulation is good for your democracy. And it's good that the senator also mentioned the potential return to the parliamentary system. This has always been my view. All politics is local. And in the parliamentary system, politics is definitely local. Okay? Now, you have to bear in mind also that all these political parties that are registering are not, the registrations are not being done and the operations of these parties are not being done, at least in theory, with government funds, with public funds. People are bringing their own money to the table and setting up these political parties in their wisdom. They've decided that they want to run for office and whatever. As long
and has that made them viable?
As long as they are not spending public funds in the establishment or operation of their political parties, I don't see the problem. Personally, I don't see the problem.
Public funds are
I asked a question: has that made them viable? Because there is a reason why they came together as a party, and if you are not able to push,
I think that's a decision for INEC to make, and I really do not. I really, would like to urge us, having watched so many democracies descend into tyranny and dictatorship over the years across the world, I really would be hesitant. To support the idea of over-regulation in any sort of democracy. I really would. Let the people regulate themselves. Let them decide for themselves. Am I wasting too much money in this venture? Is this sensible for me to do? Should I be wasting money setting up secretariats in 2/3 of the states of the Federation as well as maintaining one in Abuja? Let their pocket decide for them. In time, as the democracy begins to grow, maybe in another 10 to 15 years' time, the 91 parties will most likely contract into maybe 20. And as time goes on, more and more, APC, your political party, sir, is a result of, mergers. Yeah. And these sort of mergers are still going to happen. There are still going to be more and more mergers. A sort of quasi-merger happened recently where, I think 37 political parties merged together to form some kind of working relationship. They called it. It's not exactly a merger, but it's the beginning of something. And these are the issues that I'm pointing at when I say that you should allow, the political space to regulate itself. Don't over-regulate, because you start doing that, the holders of power, the wielders of power, will perhaps begin to push the boundaries just a little more, just a little more, just a little more, and then before you know it, you've descended into tyranny.
You want to say something quickly?
Yes,
because
please.
we want to
Yes,
take
please.
a break.
Well, the COPs, the 37 parties, they were talking of alliance.
That's what I said, a
So
quasi-merger.
merger is what happened with APC.
APC.
And even at that, you can see what is going on. A sort of, when you take pack of cards and you are shoveling, today this one, they come to that place, the slightest crisis, everybody started the campaign here and there. No willingness to say, okay, let us learn to coexist with one another. But I agree with you in the sense that the 91 political parties, it won't take 4 years. The natural attrition will happen. You will just discover that many of them will fade away, especially if there's no feeding bottle from INEC. No federal government money or any government money being expended on them. Naturally, there will be attrition. And most invariably, we won't have more than maximum of 3 or 4 parties that will remain viable and that will controlling the political space.
All right, let's go on a short break now. The discussion continues when we return. Stay with us. You're still watching Standpoint. Well, elections in Nigeria since 1999 has been a two-horse race, despite the numerous parties that field candidates. The tie is always between the ruling party and the main opposition. This time, it's the All Progressives Congress and the People's Democratic Party that will slug it out. But do you see surprises springing up in 2019 to break this jinx? Well, I'll start with you, Senator.
All right.
Do you see a surprise with the proliferation of parties? Do you see a surprise springing up to break this jinx of the two-horse race we have always known?
I'm not seeing any trace of a surprise because if anything, it has been gravitation towards the two political parties. The more we have proliferation, then the stronger the two parties become.
How is that?
Yes, when you have people dividing themselves into little bits, that is mushrooming of political parties, then it will be making the two major ones to become stronger. Because from the mushrooming ones, you have the same forces pushing them back into that place. You know, when you see things in Nigeria, people join political parties just to use as platform, not on ideological basis. Until we get to ideological orientation, whereby, come rain or sunshine, people decided to stay with the party is associated with. It is then we'll be talking of surprises coming up. So that if eventually the polity throws up something unusual that will make the ideological orientation of a particular smaller party to become suddenly relevant, then you can expect surprises. But right now, you have APC doing a wonderful job. They are trying to take us out of wood. We were sunk below ground zero. Then they brought us back to ground zero, and they are now rising. So with the growth, nothing could change between now and the next election. It's almost decided. So even PDP is likely to lose more of the states they are controlling right now. So if that won't happen, it will be a tall dream for any new unknown party to just spring a surprise. For you to spring a surprise, you must be known for something.
Otumba, for you to spring a surprise, you must be known for something. That's what the senator is saying. But do you share the same view of the fact that the more the proliferation, the stronger the two parties get?
Yes and no. When we discuss politics, I believe we need to actually understand that what happens in the center, it's not usually what happens in the state. Completely different. Yes, that school of thought, it's plausible when you talk about center, presidential. The more the fragmentation, the stronger the bigger party, center. But when you bring it down to state level, it's a completely different kettle of fish because the politics there is localized, there's culture, there's religion, there's so many things that needs to be considered. I am perhaps in the best position to talk about this.
Oh, please
because,
go ahead.
I'll be talking from experience. I came out in 2013-14 to register or return one of the most ideological parties ever, Unity Party of Nigeria. I came in, registered it, I'm financing it. And I've done it, I use it to contest locally. If I had used UPN, because I fielded 19 governorship candidates in 2015 and senatorial across the nation, if I had actually tried to go it presidential, it would have been a completely waste of time because it is center.
Well, how has it fared so far?
In the state, it's a different thing. Coming out with a new political party that has ideology that people tend to
relate with.
We did the election in 2015. I came out as a lone ranger, a green horse, and I came third. Even some of the political parties that were in existence, I actually beat them. It goes to show that, yes, it can be done. Surprises can be sprung. And I strongly believe that in some states, they will be surprised because people have started understanding that you cannot judge what is happening in federal and compare what's going to happen, what's happening in the state. They're completely different things. We were one of the people that voted for Buhari. A lot of people voted for him, even though they're not in his political party, because we were looking for something different. Well, then. Now, in Ogun State, I'm speaking from my state, for example. Yes, there's divided views. Some people will say the current dispensation is doing wonderfully well. Some people will say, no, they're failing in certain aspects. Yes, they're doing okay in certain aspects. But then, generally, because of the stain, the errors of the center is now filtering down to the state. People are thinking, no, we don't want the first, we don't want the second, we want something fresh. Not change, but they want something new, something fresh. And these are the people that are voting. They are going to come out and vote. So if APC is thinking in the states, I'm not talking about federal presidency now, if they are thinking in the states that it's going to be them, they're going to get a shock in a lot of states.
Okay, let me ask Babatunde now, what's the level of acceptance of your party? How are the electorates identifying with your party's ideology in comparison with the two popular parties?
Before I answer your question, I'd like to quickly address something that the distinguished senator said, which I find really interesting.
All right.
He said that this administration met the country comatose and has now drawn us out of the woods, and that we are now about to get out of the woods. I disagree completely. In 2017, on January 30, 2017, I read an alarming forex utilization report from the CBN on a website called leaders.ng. After reading through that report, I was that alarmed that I got on Facebook and did a Facebook live video for about 1 hour, 10 minutes. On February 22, 2017, the DSS came knocking at my doorstep, arrested me and detained me for 9 days for making that video. What was the content of the video? There on that report, some Nigerians, some privileged Nigerians were getting dollars at 65 kobo. It was there on the CBN report. And it's still there on the CBN website unless they pull it down today. The Forex utilization report for the month of October. When I was eventually released from Buhari's gulag.
No, you can't really tell me that, but you have to be.
That's what it was. I was never charged with anything.
All right.
It was an illegal detention. I went through it, so I can tell you exactly what happened.
Okay, now.
Yeah? So when I was released from that, I actually went back to the CBN website, had a look at the January Forex utilization report, and I was in for far more shocks. So what I'm saying, in essence, is that this administration has seen a total rape of the Forex administration system at the CBN. It's been completely abused. And it's one of the reasons
We can't
why we
make
have
categorical statements.
It's one of the
We
reasons
cannot make
why we
categorical
have such serious
statements.
economic problems. One of the things that this administration did was they decided that they wanted to control how Forex was being sold. So all of a sudden, we had so many different rates for Forex. If you were going on pilgrimage to Mecca, you got it at 199. If you were going on pilgrimage to Israel, you got it at another rate. If you were paying school fees, you got it at another rate.
What we are focusing on,
What I'm
I asked the
saying,
question.
what I'm saying is,
Yes.
this administration has the worst record as far as economic management is concerned. So the argument that perhaps they might be elected overwhelmingly on the basis of their economic performance, it's a fallacy, unfortunately.
Now back to my question.
So now the question, the ADP is a new party registered just last year, and it's beginning to gain acceptance across the country, okay, in leaps and in bounds. In many states of the North and the North Central, we're very well accepted. Niger State, Kano State, Kaduna State, we're very well accepted in Plateau State. We're very well accepted in Ogun State, your state. We're very well accepted there. It might not be apparent now. It might not be apparent now, but eventually it will all become clearer.
It may not be apparent now because aren't you looking at 2019?
Yes, we are. In Osun State,
all right,
as we speak today, more than half the activists of the APC have crossed to the ADP.
more than half.
More than half. That's a fact. It's an indisputable fact. It's causing it's ringing all sorts of alarm bells in Abuja. His Excellency, the former governor of Edo State, has been rushing up and down, in a frenzy.
And you're certain that in the states that you have so received acceptance, you can spring surprises?
Well, let's just say that Nigerians are fed up. Nigerians are tired. For those of us who are fortunate enough to have visited other climes, we know, and of course, I'm going to focus entirely on Lagos now. For many Lagosians that are frequent travelers, or even occasional travelers to foreign climes outside of Africa, they've seen what development really is, and they're tired. They're fed up. By the time we begin to present the facts of the APC's rule over the last 19 years, and you might say it's not been the APC, but it's been the same political tendency all through, okay? By the time we present the facts and we present the possibilities, what could have been done had the resources available to Lagos State, in Lagos, had the resources available to the Lagos State government been more judiciously applied, what we could have achieved in that 19-year period. When we start presenting that to the people, you will see that Lagosians are well and truly fed up. It is true, as you said, Mr. Paseda, Otumba Paseda, sorry, that the Nigerian populace are actually fed up of number one and number two in terms of the political parties. They're fed up. They don't want to hear APC or PDP anymore because it's the same people. It's a game of musical chairs. They keep rotating. They will cross from PDP to APC today. When they are fed up of APC,
ADP as well, remember?
They will cross from APC back to PDP.
And they cross to ADP, remember?
And those people that cross to ADP are part of the same set of people.
Part of the same setup.
Sorry, are part of the same set of people that are fed up. They are part of Nigerians that are fed up of this, this duopoly, so to speak, of these two political parties that are actually, in fact, one. They're not two. They're one political party bearing different names for different franchises. Okay? So Nigerians have seen through the games. They've seen through all of it. It's just, smokes and mirrors. That's all it is. Just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. Everybody is now beginning to see through it, and you know, they're looking for alternatives. So from state to state, you will see that, you know, differences will begin to occur. Some states will go to one political party. Like I can tell you that in Oyo State, APC is not going to win there. It may not be ADP,
we
but it
cannot
won't
make
be
categorical. You cannot make categorical.
I can tell you that.
You cannot make categorical
In
statements.
Osun
on the
State, it's not
program.
likely for APC to win.
All right, let's move to the Senator now.
I just want us to understand one thing. The hood, they say, does not make the monk. Political parties are just mere contraption, name given. In Nigeria today, let us go and check the 91 political parties. Their composition is essentially the same set of politicians that had been existing, not newcomers coming into politics, not the existing participants shouting an ideological orientation. And that is why it is so easy for people to move from one place to the other. And on top of it all, there is no single party out of the 91 you will discover that is immune to non-internal democracy. Everybody wants to boost one's ego. Everybody wants to be attempted this, attempted that. We have some that are serial contestants. And at the end of the day, what do they stand for? Now, if you say party A or B or C is not okay, what is the alternative? What alternative are you offering the electorate? We don't have it. To date, discussion has been centered around either religion or somebody cheated me out in the sharing of political offices and this and that, and as a result, they want to form another party. As a result, they want to decamp into another party. That won't get us anywhere. We need to get a sort of rebirth whereby we examine ourselves. The problem is in us, not in the political party. After all, what is in the name? It can be Stone Party, it can be Mud Party. It doesn't matter. What they stand for is what is most important. And that is what will bring succor to the people.
Perhaps Otumba might want to tell us what is, when we talk about ideologies and look at other parties, what the other parties have said they were bringing to the table, what is your party bringing differently that you feel it's making it get as much acceptance and could spring the surprise?
Well, I'm going to deviate a little bit before I answer that question. Our senator was saying that what is the alternative? I believe the alternative really is there.
Credible.
It's just that we're not exploiting it. The alternative is for us to go back to the method of electing our leaders. It's monetized, and that's the problem.
Isn't that how we have built
vote,
our political system?
That's one of the things I'm saying. Why must we copy other countries' political system? Why can't we make ours? They don't have what we have. We have the monarchs. Our culture is different. Our values are different. Why must we copy them? Until we get to a position where we jettison all foreign influences and sit down as a nation and create a system that is unique to us. That's the only time we will make progress.
The times we have tried to sit together to talk about certain things, did it work?
It did, but the power that be didn't want it to work.
Who are these powers?
It's not. Oh, we know what we know. We know who we're talking about. But eventually, at some point, something will give. Some well-meaning Nigerians were put together. They came up with a document, just like any other country. This is the way forward. We spent so much money putting it together, then somebody or some people in their wisdom decided, dump it. Why? That's the only solution, the only salvation that we have in our country, but it's been dumped. What is happening in Lagos? Let's see, politics is localized. You can't compare Lagos with Ogun, Ogun with Osun, Osun with Ekiti. If you do that, you will get it wrong, because they have their uniqueness, and they have their history, and they have their religious connotations. When you talk about Kwara State, majority of the people who live there are Muslims. We might try to wish it away and say religion doesn't play.
We just see ourselves as Nigerians and bringing in religious and all those sentiments.
That is when we put together a system that is unique to us. The system that we have now is not for us. Their religion is different. The countries that practice this religion, this kind of system in those days, are predominantly 99.99% Christians. They don't have what we have. We have 3 religions in Nigeria, like it or not: Christian, Muslim, and the other one. They don't, when they were putting their system together. So I believe we need to go back to that. Then the other thing is, there is the sets of people that actually go out to vote. If they are allowed to vote properly, they're not being restricted. Their voters' card are being released to them. They're not, you know, there's something going on now, right now, that's happening now. You go to INEC, you say you want to register. They will say, fine. You will register. They take a note of your registration number, maybe it's the sequence, maybe 101 to 150. They keep it. When the PVC comes back, that PVC from that 101 to 150 will be withdrawn. You will not get it, because they know that that particular section is strong for a political party.
And who gets the PVC?
Nobody.
In Lagos.
Last election, you will find that lots and lots and lots of PVCs are sitting there. They wouldn't release it, because they know. Then the other thing is, you go there, they ask you, what political parties are you from? No, they're going. They're not giving it to them.
People are going, but they're refusing to hand them over.
Yes. See, this thing is going on. You already started rigging before election.
Thank you.
It's a smart move. Yes, you know, they have the power, they're doing it. But at some point, if we don't address the main issue, and the main issue is our constitutional issue, and that's what we need to go back to.
We need to quickly take this. Nigerians are becoming more politically aware and vibrant. The calls for registration and collection of the permanent voter cards have been very loud. But latest news from the desk of INEC is that more 7 million PVCs are yet to be collected across the country, especially in the southwest. How will this impact the 2019 elections? Well, we began to talk about this, like I was asking. Is this about people, they denying people their PVCs, or people going to collect it?
I think INEC have been, you know, completely and utterly dishonest about this. They're being dishonest. Okay, this particular iteration of INEC is probably the worst I've ever seen in terms of electoral umpires ever in the history of democracy, not just in the history of Nigeria. Okay, now you can't have a situation where there's a sitting president and he appoints his niece as a commissioner of INEC.
Is it about the person?
Let me finish. Allow me to finish, please. And then he appoints the INEC commissioner, the INEC national chairman, from his own zone. It's never been done in the history of Nigeria. This is the first time that this is happening. And immediately, almost as soon as he took office, the fears that a lot of us entertained began to manifest. Inconclusive elections, voter registration being constricted instead of being spread out. You see, there are things that I don't understand. I'll mention one of them. Okay, in the banks today, you can walk into a bank and apply for a debit card. And right there and then, they will print your debit card for you. It's a very high security document that's on a worldwide, on a global platform. Okay? So the margin of error is basically zero. Absolute zero. Now, INEC is catering just to Nigeria, and not even to all Nigerians, just Nigerians over the age of 18. That's it. Just Nigerians over the age of 18.
And they can't, to speak now, because we are almost about to wrap up.
Let me just finish this. Quickly. And they cannot seem to produce people's PVCs on demand, that's one, and they're refusing to register the majority of eligible Nigerians, instead registering people from Niger, Mali, and all these other places.
Excuse me. I said earlier that the problem is in us. What is coming out from voters registration and PVC collection is evidence of untackled corruption. Those in INEC places were not from heaven. They are amongst us. And many of them are expecting gratification. When my brother, is it Alhaji Gbadamoshi?
Mr.
Gbadamoshi, when he was talking about duplicity in the foreign exchange, I was just laughing. Those are some of the shortcomings the APC administration of President Buhari was trying to remove from the system. But we keep on bringing it in. We politicians, we play a lot of role in all this. We want concession, we want to circumvent the rules, which doesn't happen in more advanced countries. So until we learn to do things the right way, we will continue to grope in the darkness, and it will not augur well. So everybody knows. I know my brother Otumba is wearing a white, and here is a yellow. So anybody coming in to tell me that this is slightly brown or whatever, I will say, no, it's not so. So this corruption within the system is something we need to nip in the bud.
But we
and that is why
we need to address how it affects the elections, because
it affects the election because everybody wants to cut corner. For example, we have registration. Some people want to collect the card from the PVC at a fee from the electorate. So for what? So that they can use it for the various activities on the day of election. Then why should anybody be keeping membership card of a political party? 20, 30, 200, 300. For what? Once you've collected your own, you should be contented and you go home and keep it in a safe custody. But people start trading in it because we have a buyer.
Well,
you can't have a seller, you have a seller, you have a buyer. And that is the problem. Until President Buhari will not come from Abuja to see what is going on in Lagos, or to monitor what is going on in Anambra, we need to examine ourselves and get things done by ourselves.
Quickly, in wrapping up, gentlemen, please.
I will wrap up by throwing a poser. My brother just said something, and it's the litmus test as far as I'm concerned. If a bank can generate your credit card right there and then, can you please ask INEC why they cannot generate your PVC right there and then in this day and age?
Quickly.
I'd like to suggest to INEC to extend the registration period up until January 2019. That's number one. Number two, I'd like INEC to return to the registration system that we had in the run-up to the previous election, where people registered at their polling units. This system is not serving to register all Nigerians. It's emasculating Nigerians, and it's disenfranchising them. Number three, perhaps INEC should consult with the banks and maybe co-opt them into the registration exercise, as banks have so many branches around the country.
Thank you so much, Senator Gbenga Kaka, Babatunde Gbadamosi, and Otumba Rotimi Basheda. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. And that's our package
It's our
Been a
on
pleasure.
today's edition of Standpoint. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can watch a repeat of this edition tomorrow by 7 a.m. I'm Veronica Danik. Boy, enjoy your weekend.